Ezekiel chapter 38. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, so now Israel's back to life. Son of man, set thy face against Gog. In two of the older translations, it was the AGAG. Gog, the land of Magog, which is widely taught today to be Russia. I did a lot of studying on it and found out that in Turkey there was Magog, a city or an area, and there was a Meshech, and there was Tubal in Turkey. And I also learned that the story of how London started before there were swords was that an evil king was in charge, and that a giant named Magog helped take over the country and helped the queen and helped win, and then they became called the champions of London. And to this day, once or twice a year, the Lord Mayor of London brings out Magog and parades him through the city. So, if you read the beginning of this part, it says, and the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog. And in London they have Magog Downs. And in London Lord Rothschild runs the money of the world. It wasn't even his name, it was Mayor was his name. But they changed his name on purpose to make a point. Rothschilds. All the money in the world is run from one city. One city bought the land of Israel. I wonder if they're the Edomites. Ham. Anyways, I'm setting my face against London, and I always have my face on Putin, and I've always been wondering which one. I mean, for almost the entire time, it's like the rapture or just like Easter, you just don't even consider that it could be wrong. Everyone that believes in the rapture, that's just what they're taught, and then when you break their truth, the sword, you just slice it until they're free of thinking they're going to disappear tonight and their clothes are going to be sitting on their bed. And instead of hoping the world is getting closer and closer to the end, because it says, you know, who's going to be all happy when the day of the Lord comes? It's a lot of wrath. Easter. Who would have thought? That's wrong. It's the most important day of being a Christian, right? Christmas. Who would have thought that's wrong? So nowhere did I find, I was told that there's a city 5 miles south of Moscow called Meshech. I've looked on every map I can find, I haven't found it yet. It's the only reason I believe it at all is it's from my most trusted teacher. But he's the one that taught me about a lot of the other things that were wrong, so maybe, I mean, it was just a random find. I was watching the video at the end of 2.5 hour long video, and this guy said Magog, you know, the statues in London, and I just Googled it. Google it for yourself, champions of London, and then read about what the people of London that like this thing, they're not going to get rid of it. They should do it tomorrow. If they don't, fire's going to keep coming on them, because I'm going to aim my fire directly at them. And I'm going to remember that Turkey, which Javier Solana says is the final goal of the EU, is in the fight. In the imam that I watch, he said the most important city is Constantinople. And the 7 letters to the 7 angels, to the 7 churches in Revelations is to Turkey. So Russia is above Turkey, but there actually is a Meshech in Turkey. Why is this important? Because if we're told that Russia is the bad guy, Russia's the other side of Ezekiel, Russia's Magog, then we're all going to be against him. What if we find out there's the champions of London is the guy we're supposed to be against? And oh, by the way, what did we just read? Somebody's going to buy the 2 countries, Judah and Israel, and make it one and take it away from God? Who did that? For real, who already did that? Rothschilds. Britannica. One of my favorite movies is Braveheart. And I just pray someday that he'll be avenged. So, why is this so important? Gog and Magog fights against God. They're against God. Who would have thought the United Kingdom and London would be any part of anything against God? Isn't it the United Kingdom? Are they just actors in the play? I watched George Bush sit on a camera and say, "I'm Magog," and laugh, chuckle. So, if you tell everybody your enemy is this guy and you use this book against him, when you find out the fact that the guy that's saying it is the enemy, he's the one trying to divide us. He's the one bringing the whole world to war. He's the one trying to make the book come true. And if you read what Albert Pike wrote, Morals and Dogma, they knew the 3 world wars in advance. And then they said the goal of the end of the 3 world wars was to get rid of religion. I hate religion too. The way I read it, it was to get rid of people's faith. The way I hope it turns out is that everyone will find out there's one true God and there'll be one faith, and that no one will need a teacher anymore, like he said in Hebrews. We'll all know God. We won't need a teacher anymore, because he's going to put his spirit into all of us, like we just read in Ezekiel 37, and then we're all going to come to life. So, as we face Ukraine, as we face Crimea, as we face which used to be Scythia, the most important little land in the area, the Red Sea, where they're all fighting. Not the Red Sea, the Caspian Sea, I think it is. And they're all drawing sides, and it's, they're saying white supremacists and Nazis are on one side, or they're saying the Western world's on one side, and then they're saying the Russians are on the other side, and everyone's killing everybody. But watch the news of the people in Ukraine and watch how much they're suffering. Is it worth it? Is this book going to come true no matter what? Even though he told us so far in advance, aren't we allowed to learn? Aren't we allowed to learn? And if anything has to do with London, is in the United Kingdom, get Gog out of it. Get Magog out. Or I'm going to burn them, and I'm going to beg God to just drop as much fire as he possibly can, which is the word, onto them, and pray that no real fire comes. I just want them to feel so ashamed and so just disgusted. Like Berlin, having Zeus's throne there, Satan's throne, and knowing that Obama went there, and I think he put his hand on it, and I think he gave an oath, and I think that he made his whole campaign platform was a replica of Zeus's throne. Why do these people keep going back to statues and stones and old mysteries? Is the mysteries that important? Have to be initiated to know the whole truth? Who knows the whole truth? Because every level only knows what they know. Read this book and you'll know that he's against them. Did they make this book as a game? To hide their book? I don't think so. Anyways, Ezekiel 38, and 39 have been the 2 most important chapters to me since I woke up. Because I was sitting on my couch one day and Pastor Arnold said, Gog and Magog and the Meshech is Russia. And as he was saying it, he was doing a teaching on nations. It was my first real movie of Omegacube. And then I flicked on the news, and then it says Gog and Magog and Meshech's going to be friends with Persia. And then I watched on TV Iran and Russia shake their hands. It was the first time they'd ever been friends. First time they'd ever had a treaty. And then we've all watched what's happened since then. That was 2006, 2007. Now at the very end, for me, to find out that London, everything keeps pointing to London. Money's run there. And God uses them, puts a hook in their nose, so maybe they don't even have a choice. And the the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. This is one of the main reasons why I came to read today, is I can't let it stand. I'm not going to have my channel, my teachings, my students, because I'm a teacher now. I don't want to have my church, I don't want anybody to go around promoting a thing that we know is not true. And there's only one city on this planet that I know that brags about being Magog, or Magog's their champion. There's only one. And I watched in the Olympics, and when I was here, it was the day before the finals of the Olympics in 2012 in London. They had the Olympics in 1948, and they had the Olympics in 2012. And they're singing in the beginning, their Jerusalem was their opening thing, and then the last song was, We Will Rule the World, and then in the middle they had a 100-foot Voldemort, the bad guy from Harry Potter, walking through the thing, and they had pigs flying in the air, because what's a flying pig? It's the swine flesh. When pigs fly, it means it's impossible. They think they're going to pull this off. With the words of the prophets, I'm going to cut them to pieces like Samuel cut Agag until they quit. Does it mean? No, it's a lot better than what they do. Why? Because I think they should quit fighting God and be on the right side. It's the United Kingdom, it's part of us. Scotland, come on, I go to Scottish Fest every year. It's not going to happen, or I'm going to keep doing this and keep burning them and switch, and I'm going to help Putin almost. We're going to be almost helping Putin. How could we be the bad guys in this fight? Why is 43 out of 44 of our presidents related to the same bloodline? The people that we respect and admire the most. The wise become fools. The fools become wise. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. The real land is in Turkey. Get rid of the statues. I'm going to nominate the new champion of London being the living God, the creator of all things. How about that? How about the lamb that was slain? How about an angel? How about Michael? Champion of London. Set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. And they were sons of Ham. If you follow the line, and what did Ham do to his dad? And thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, all thine army and horsemen and horses, and all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, and all of them handling swords. And now, so somebody's going to be on this side. That's probably the way you find out. And what are they doing right now? They're just begging Iran to have a deal. Beg, 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 beg. Can we please have a deal with Iran? Elam, the Medes and the Persians, Chaldeans. So we're on 38.5. Persia is on the side of Magog. Ethiopia is on the side of Magog. Libya is on the side of Magog. With them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer, that's Turkey. That's what we're always told, that's Turkey, but Magog and Gog and Meshech is Turkey today. It was called Anatolia before. And all of his bands from the house of Togarmah and the north quarters, and all of his bands and many people with me. Why does this matter? Because people are starting world wars over these things. People want to kill each other over these things. Why does it matter? Because God told us a long time ago what was going to happen, and if we figure it out, that's step one. Step two is, can we stop? Step three, no. Word's coming true no matter what. Be on the right side. Should we hate Russia and be against Russia even though they're just being played like a pawn like us? But they're not a pawn. It seems like Putin's just way too smart. I mean, if anyone has a hook in his mouth, I swear, I mean, it seems like it's him, doesn't it? But, gotta watch London, sitting there financing the whole world. And that's being taken away from him. What's gonna happen to our world if we don't figure this out? Why does this book have to come true? Because God said so. I guess that's how 1,000 fall on your right and 10,000 fall on your left. But who runs the media of the world? Some people say Hollywood. But if you turn on any news, BBC News, Russian News, Al Jazeera News, I mean, they all got people have English accents. What are they doing? Pumping propaganda to make us all fight. Wouldn't you think that the KGV Bible, King James Bible people, would be pumping the word to try to get people to not fight? And be ready and not afraid when it does come because we're on the right side? So who's in this war? Gog, the land of Magog, chief prince of Meshech, Tubal. Thus saith the Lord, I am against you. Then we jump over to number 5. Persia, Ethiopia, Libya. So Persia is easy because it's Iran. Ethiopia, pretty easy. Sudan. Ethiopia, it's on that corner, the horn. Libya, it's always been Libya. Gomer. Gomer's a harder one because nobody really knows what Gomer is, but it's supposed to be Turkey. And all of his bands, and the house of Togarmah, and the north quarter, and all his bands, and many people be with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare thyself, thou, and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. And after many days thou shalt be visited in the latter years. Be thou prepared, prepare thyself, and thy company that are assembled, and be a guard unto them. So they're in charge of guarding everybody, they're doing good at that. And after many days thou shalt be visited in the latter years, thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of my people. Okay, so who is going into the land that was brought back to the sword? London. Who bought it? Rothschilds. London. That's it. After many days thou shalt be visited in the latter years, thou shalt come back into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but which is brought forth out of the nations, and then they dwell safely in all. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm, thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, and thou and all thy bands and many people with thee. And thus saith the Lord God, it shall also come to pass that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. And thou wilt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. What's the land of unwalled villages? It's supposed to be America, is what I've been taught. Because we're on the coast. I mean, we have our own continent. We cover both sides. We're not really worried about Canada attacking us. We're not really worried about Mexico attacking us. What if you're in Israel? How many people are you worried about attacking you? They got a wall there. Thou shalt ascend and come up like a storm, and thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, and thou and all thy bands and many people with thee. What do you call it? The springs, the Egypt spring, Libya spring, Africa spring, Islam spring. I think they're having a spring in Europe now. And it is spring, was as yesterday, 2 days ago. And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, and having neither bars nor gates. To take a spoil, to take a prey, to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle and goods that dwell in the midst of the land. Sheba, Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish. Sheba is the South Africa, Queen of Sheba. Tarshish, the merchants of Tarshish. Tyre, the merchants, the sailing ships. What's the United Kingdom's biggest thing they ever had was ships that sailed the whole world. What do you say? Their kingdom, the sun never set on the kingdom. How could the United Kingdom before Christ be against him? Maybe they were lied to. Maybe they were tricked. Maybe they're tricking all of us on purpose. Maybe they just don't know their history. Sheba, Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish, with all the young lions thereof, shall say unto thee, Art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey? To carry away silver and gold, and to take away the cattle and goods, to take a great spoil? Now we're coming to make a one world system. We're just going to run you, and if you don't listen, yeah, we'll take your stuff. Oh, austerity. You need to sell us all your land. You need to sell us all your buildings. All your people have to pay more taxes, and then you can be part of us. Therefore, son of man, prophesy and say unto Gog, Thus saith the Lord God, In that day when my people Israel dwelleth safely, shall thou not know it? I remember the year 2000, everybody was pretty happy. We were doing the whole peace treaty thing with Israel and the Palestinians, and it's almost hard to remember what it was like before 2001. Before somebody devised an evil plan and blamed it all on the Muslims and started this war. And thou shalt come out from the place of the north parts, thou and many people with thee, all of them riding horses, and a great company of mighty army. And thou shalt come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land, and it shall be in the latter days, and I will bring thee against my land, that the heathen may know me when I shall be sanctified in thee, O Gog, before their eyes. Well, I guess that's satire. God in the sky put a hook in their nose and drags them to war. God's going to be sanctified because he used them to fight. And then God's going to destroy them at the end. And thou shalt come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days, and I will bring thee against my land. So that's the only way to get out of trouble, is God's doing this to you. Maybe because he already knew who you were. Maybe it's because before there were swords, you decided that the champion of your city was a giant. David killed Goliath. I'm looking forward to finding a stone and sticking it in the middle of their head. Magog. Because God's going to sanctify himself in destroying Gog before their eyes. Thus saith the Lord God, Art thou he of whom I have spoken in the old times by my servants, the prophets of Israel, which prophesied in those days many years that I would bring thee against them? And it shall come to pass at the same time when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, saith the Lord God, that my fury shall come up in my face. For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day shall there be a great shaking in the land of Israel, as it happened yet. So that the fishes of the sea, and the fowls of the heaven, and the beasts of the field are all, well, it's almost about to happen. It looks like it's going to happen. Some people argue and say it's the end of the 1,000 years. Some people say it's the beginning of the 1,000 years. What concerns me is that This is not just a book anymore. This is like a man. I mean, when he puts a spirit in you, he shows you, and you can discern your way through. And study yourself. Be a good Berean. It looks pretty bad if you watch TV. Here it's fine. There's nothing going on around here. If there wasn't TV and radio, I would be fine. I would be playing golf, or I'd be doing something else. Thus saith the Lord God, 39:17. Art thou he of whom I have spoken in the old time? So God spoke by my servants, the prophets of Israel. Ezekiel was one of them. Which prophesied in those days many years that I would bring thee against them. And it shall come to pass at the same time when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, saith the Lord God, that my fury shall come into my face. Dare you, dare you. For in my jealousy and in my fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day shall there be a great shaking in the land of Israel, so that the fishes of the sea and the fowls of the heaven and the beasts of the field and all the creeping things that creep upon the earth and all the men that are upon the face of the earth shall shake at my presence. The mountains shall be thrown down, the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all of my mountains, saith the Lord God. Every man's sword shall be against his brother. That's not cool. But it is kind of a brother, huh? How could we be against London? It's not all of London. The ones that run it. The ones that were smart enough to tell the King of England and all of the people of England, we're going to lose this war, we're going to lose this war. So then the money crashes. So then what do the Rothschilds do right after? Buy it all. And then what happens? They lied. Oh, and now they own England. So they steal and then they charge you interest. I have a finance degree. It's wrong. You don't have to do money like that. Money is not evil. You're evil. They're evil. It's the highest evil. Why did Christ take a cat of nine tails and beat him and get him out of his temple? His dad's house. Get him out. And where are they now? Sitting in London, and they're saying they're Jerusalem and they're Israel. I had to teach this because I had to get it out. So I'm going to sit in the Peace Garden at Michael's Mission. Him watching my back, God's watching, everyone's watching. I'm covered, and I'm going to just fry. I'm going to burn them. And it shall come to pass at that time when Gog shall come against the land of Israel. And then I have to remember, God hooked him. God brought him to war. God's going to be sanctified because of London. God's going to be sanctified because if Putin's part of it, Putin. I don't think so. I think Putin and I think certain people are going to make sure the Kenites lose. Ham. The Hamites. And it shall come to pass at that time when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, saith the Lord God, that my fury shall come up in my face. Where's the land of Israel, the 10 tribes' new home? One land under God, indivisible. Dare ya. Paul Revere time. For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day shall there be a great shaking in the land of Israel. I'm not going to read the whole next one because I already read this. 21. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, saith the Lord God. Every man's sword shall be against his brother. And I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood. And I will rain upon him and upon his bands and upon the many people that are with him. An overflowing rain with great hailstones, fire, and brimstone. Pastor Arnold thinks it's going to be a war in Alaska, and it'll take 15 minutes. But I don't think he knew It's not widely known, even though it's been that way for so long. The champions of London is Magog. If it is Russia, it makes lots more sense, except for they're doing a play. The Cold War. We were friends at the end of World War II, and we made a plan. And Albert Pike and the Masons made a plan long before that. The builders of the country. 23. Thus will I magnify myself, and I sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am the Lord. So he's done miracles before he splits the sea, and then people still, he split the sea, but this time he's bringing them all. Everyone's coming against his place, and who's going to be on Israel's side? Doesn't say there's going to be very many. None. Him, God, and Israel. Chapter 39 is next.